Good evening. I'm Char Glacy, Chapter Chair of the San Diego Explorers Club, and I welcome you to tonight's webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to share a little bit about what the Explorers Club is all about. The Explorers Club is an international, multidisciplinary professional organization dedicated to the advancement of field research and scientific exploration. Since its inception in 1904, the club has served as a meeting point and unifying force for explorers and scientists worldwide. With its headquarters in Manhattan, the Explorers Club has over 3,000 members and 30 chapters throughout the United States and around the world. The chapters serve as focal points for explorers, scientists, and students. The chapters hold dinners, lectures, seminars. We organize field trips, publish newsletters, and arrange educational events. Some famous honorary members have included Theodore Roosevelt, John Glenn, Walter Cronkite, Prince Philip, and Albert, Prince of Monaco. In addition to those honorary members, we have an honorary member in our own San Diego chapter in the name of Bob Fisher. So I would like to say that I'm very honored to be chair of the San Diego chapter, and I'd like to turn it over to David Dolan to introduce Jess and get this show on the road. Thank you very much, David. You can take it over.
Okay, thank you, Shara. So glad everybody can join us tonight. And so happy that Jess particularly can join us as well, and all of you out there. I'm just really pleased to introduce our friend, Jess Phoenix, who is a fellow of the Explorers Club and a fellow of the World Geographical Society, and a member of numerous organizations related to scientific study of the planet. When you think about different ways of introducing someone, not often can you go to the New York Times. And I found this headline, which I just read very briefly. The headline from several years ago, 2018, said, "Meet Jess Phoenix, the volcanologist running for Congress in California." Ms. Phoenix, one of hundreds of scientists seeking public office this year, spoke with the Times about her focus on climate change and a desire to bring evidence-based policy making to Washington. And it goes on as an interview and talking about that adventure, but this is just one of her many adventures. And I'm sure maybe that's one way of calling that whole experience, Jess, an experience. Sometimes it's tilting at windmills, but doing your best. Jess is also known as Volcano Jess, as a geologist, explorer, and scientific evangelist. And she has been using her communication skills as well as hands-on leading groups of young people and adults to explore the planet and learn about it. She's a geologist, and she's the executive director and co-founder of the environmental scientific research organization, Blueprint Earth. As a volcanologist, she is also an extreme explorer, and she's a host of an upcoming Discovery Channel series, Hunting Atlantis, something I'm always interested in. And then the adventures she's had just go on and on. Like I said, she is a fellow of the club, and she's been a TEDx speaker, and she's also been in numerous countries around the world in her pursuit of adventure, exploration, and scientific research. We're very excited to be hosting Jess tonight in particular because she's the author of a forthcoming book coming out next week called Ms. Adventure. And it's a book that I've already pre-ordered. And I looked on the Amazon site, and it's number 27 in all the books on earthquakes right now. So we'll do all we can to push that up and then make it a bestseller. We have it till Tuesday, when that comes out. I've already pre-ordered mine and hope you all, but we'll talk about that more later. So Jess, please take the floor.
Well, thank you so much, Dave and Char, and thanks to everybody for coming tonight. I know we're all sort of at the end of our tether when it comes to Zoom presentations, so I brought along some good visuals, so hopefully that will help. And I just really appreciate everybody making this happen, because I'm sure some of you are authors and know how much rides on people talking about your book and wanting to buy it. So hopefully, you know, this talk will give me a chance to kind of show you some of my enthusiasm for exploration, scientific exploration in particular, and also get everybody excited because, hey, hopefully better days are right ahead and we can all get back to doing the exploration that we love so much. So I'm going to share my screen and, oh, it says that it's disabled on my end. So that might be Char. Maybe she can take care of it. But for those of you who may know me, I am the one at ECAD with the mohawk, the bright red mohawk. That's what I look like in my my night wear, apparently. And I'm in the SoCal chapter here in LA. So hopefully, yep, screen sharing's working. And I really hope that we can see all of you at future club events really soon. So time for the talk. If Char, can you give me a nod or a wink or something if you see my screen? It should say, yep, okay, awesome. All right, once more unto the breach. So I usually title my talk something about volcanoes, but this time I decided to just let the images speak for themselves. And so I've called it Misadventure, My Wild Explorations in Science, Lava, and Life, because that's the name of my book. And that's, it was at the editor's suggestions that I wanted to call it Misadventure, but they said, no, Misadventure plays on a few different things. So we went with that. And that visual right there is actually Pu'u'o'o, which is a parasitic cinder cone on the side of Kilauea volcano in Hawaii. And it was taken from a helicopter. So it's actually a really big cinder cone. And the view is really impressive if the volcanic smog clears. But I figured I will have to tell all of you all of the different things we look at tonight. So just a quick overview, if you don't know me, I do exploration on land, on underwater, and in the air. So I've actually been in the world's longest horse race, the Mongol Derby, across Mongolia. I raced in that in 2012. That was not scientific. That was purely because I wanted to race in the world's longest horse race. And I do scuba dive. I use helicopters for my research. And I think that that's the best way to learn about the planet, is to get as many different perspectives as possible. And I'm sure people here agree. I've also worked in natural resources. So on the left side of the screen, that is me when I worked in coal mining in the Australian Outback, as one does. And then I ended up founding an environmental nonprofit in response to what I saw working in natural resources and wanting for us to do better. On the right-hand side, of course, I do pure science research as well in beautiful places like the Peruvian Andes, where I got to study climate change and glaciation and the linkage. So this work has really taken me literally all over the world. And I love to share that with everybody because, you know, some people don't have the ability to go out and explore. And some people may not think that exploration and science are for them. So I'm really passionate about showing people the possibilities. And the picture of me in the hard hat never fails to get groups of school kids excited, because oftentimes I don't think they see women dressed up like that doing, you know, work like that. So, hey, representation matters. So where did I kind of start? Well, be dramatic again. Here's Pu'u'o'o, a slightly different view. And my actual work in volcanology started at the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory back in 2008. And I was a volunteer researcher there. And this is while I was doing my master's research at Cal State Los Angeles. And just for a sense of scale, the small silver dots in the foreground, right near the rim of the volcano, those are instruments that are actually about 6 feet high. So just to give you a scale of how big this is. I got to work on Mauna Loa, Kilauea, and Loihi Seamount, the emerging volcano that's beneath the ocean surface off the coast of the Big Island of Hawaii. I love this photo because this is essentially like how life goes, right? You think there's a road and you're going to take that path, but something happens. Sometimes it's a lava flow and it eats your road. But those are the kind of obstacles that all of us will face, whether we go into exploration as a main career or whether it's something that we do for fun or whenever we have the time and resources. But we're always adding something to that body of knowledge, and don't let the obstacles stop you, because sometimes they cause you to find creative solutions to problems. And then this looks like the surface of another planet, but it's actually the summit of Mauna Kea volcano. I'm sure plenty of you have been there. There's a lot of the telescopes, the famed telescopes up there. And of course, there's controversy right now about the 30-meter telescope and its construction, because this is a sacred place to Native Hawaiians. I will tell you that it's just incredible to see the cinder cones in the small ones, much smaller than Pu'uo'o, because Mauna Kea volcano is in a much later stage of its life than Kilauea, which is relatively young. So volcanoes tell you a lot about how the earth evolves, but something that really matters a lot to me is seeing things with a good sense of perspective. So this image, which looks it's pretty beautiful, actually. It's vesicular basalt and it's relatively fresh. That's why those iridescent colors are present. When you actually look at lava up close, what may seem like dull brown gray rock from far away actually holds infinite surprises. So I like to remind people that we may want to solve big picture problems like climate change, but it also is important to observe the details along the way, because you never know when you might find something hidden, whether it's an answer to a problem or just something beautiful. And again, with the let's go macro, this is some sulfur that we see from a feature called a fumarole. These are two different fumaroles. They are areas basically that cracks in the ground near an active volcano where degassing occurs. And these were on Kilauea, and I thought they were absolutely beautiful because nature forms those crystals of sulfur all on its own. And it is the greatest architect of all, in my humble opinion. And the fumaroles are actually a little hot too. The gas that comes out is a bit hotter than your average air temperature. So when you wave your hand over them, you can actually feel the difference in temperature. So to me, I like to say when I'm talking to younger students that I can tell the volcano is breathing, and they get a kick out of that. But I think it works for an older crowd too. The planet is alive and it's constantly changing. And what better way to see that than in flowing lava? This is Ropey Pahoehoe. I took that photo from probably about 15 feet away using a telephoto lens, because a lava flow is about 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit when it is actively flowing. And this is a basaltic flow, which is really a low viscosity flow. So it likes to ooze. More explosive lavas are usually stickier and have a higher viscosity. My favorite are these basaltic flows, but even the most fast moving of these basaltic flows, you could outwalk. So, it's not what you might think. A lot of people think lava is the #1 hazard from volcanoes, and it really isn't. It's usually ash emissions, because volcanic ash is just pulverized fragments of that rock you see there in the picture. It gets exploded essentially by the volcano and shattered and fragmented into very small pieces. And you have instances where volcanic ash will fall on buildings and collapse roofs, or it can fall on roads, and then cars will crush it into a very fine substance that can be inhaled and cause harm to people. So it also messes up aviation, which I'm sure everyone remembers from when Eyjafjallajökull, the E15 in Iceland, erupted a few years back, and it messed up air travel around the globe. That's volcanic ash. And again, apologies if you've heard all of this before, but I never get tired of it. So you hear it again and you get good pictures. So in this is just a toe of Pahoehoe that again shows the thing that entranced me about volcanoes, which is it's the earth simultaneously creating and destroying itself. And nowhere else on the planet can we see that like we do with an active volcanic eruption. And of course, sometimes we find unexpected little bits of humor when we do our work. And I thought this looked like a man or a person trying to crawl their way out from the lava. So that's my lava man. And he did not make it all the way out before he got swallowed by more lava. But it's cool, the shapes you see. And then again, of course, for those of you who are adrenaline junkies, you might be more into this photo, which is actually a skylight, which is a feature where you can actually see into a lava tube where the lava is being transported from the summit of the volcano down out through the flanks or out to the ocean, as is often the case in Hawaii. So in there, if you look very closely, you'll see lighter orange, and you'll actually see that it's sort of going from the bottom right of the screen to the top left. And that's actually a flowing river of lava. So these are the windows into the beating heart of Earth that can teach us so much about what has happened in the past and what we can expect in the future in terms of hazards or things that aren't hazardous, but are still educational opportunities. We have a living laboratory at our disposal every time a volcano is erupting. And this is probably one of the highlights of my career and of every time I get to do work. I am sampling flowing lava. And for those of you who have been very close to an active lava flow, it is so hot, you know the feeling, you never forget it. For those who haven't had that opportunity, it is so hot. To even get a beginning of a sense of how hot it is, you can set your oven to broil and then imagine that times 4. And that's about the temperature. Don't stick your head in the oven. Please do not. Because I'll get calls later saying, hey, I tried that and it was bad. Don't do that. But when you're up close, you need the heat resistant gloves. Sometimes you see the infamous silver suits for people who are going near areas where there's a lot of spatter. I know George Karunis at the club has done a lot of work on camera wearing the silver suits. We do those a lot too. We put them on for different research projects. But in this instance, this was the very first time in my career that I sampled flowing lava. And I have a balaclava on my face that was heat resistant as well. And I was wearing sunglasses. But even with all of that, as I approached the lava flow, I could feel my eyes dehydrating. Like I could feel the moisture sizzling off. It was like nothing else. And I've worked in Death Valley quite a bit. So this was extremely hot and dry and it makes a noise. That's the thing I think that a lot of people don't know is that it sounds, a flow like this sounds like glassy tinkling noise. Like if you were to crush a delicate wine glass and then drop it onto concrete. That's sort of the noise that you hear as the flow advances. So it's really like a full body sensation, and you can't really see what you're doing when you're reaching into the lava with the rock hammer. That's the sampling tool. So in the next photo, you can see I'm angled slightly differently, but it's a little bit blurry, but this was in the days before really good cell phone cameras. But you can see that I've got the real ropey lava, and I'm pulling a bleb of the lava away. And what you don't see is that right behind me is a coffee can, just a regular like Folgers metal coffee can filled with room temperature water, nothing special about it. And so what I'm going to do with that bleb is hyperquench it. So I turn around, drop the bleb into the coffee can, the water instantly boils, and then you've gotten a sample of the lava with all the gases inside of it perfectly preserved. So we can take that hardened, hyperquenched sample back to the lab and analyze the chemistry that's in there. And we can also look at the crystals that are present, what minerals are there, and that will help us to understand maybe what the eruption's going to do. It'll give us a little bit more of that X-ray vision into the guts of the planet, so we can try to keep people safe, because fundamentally, that's what volcanology is all about. And everything that I do scientifically is either educational or to try to keep people safe. That's really why I do what I do. And then this is some of the fun stuff, but anyone who's been in the field knows how things go wrong. So it's not all glory and sampling lava. Some days things go really, really sideways. And in this instance, I was back after I had finished my degree, and I had been invited to lead an expedition for the Cronus Earth Project, which was designed to calibrate the cosmogenic nuclide dating technique, where we use the bombardment of cosmogenic rays into specific types of rock. And then we measure different isotopes to see how long the rock has been exposed in that location. So I got asked to lead this expedition. It was like it was New Mexico Tech and Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, a bunch of scientists. So we were driving this rented Jeep, not a US government Jeep, which are much more reliable, or any of the US government vehicles they have at HVO, I'd take over this thing. But the tires were bald, the spare tire was bald, but we said, okay, this is what they have for us. So we were heading up Mauna Loa, the world's largest volcano, in a really remote area where there was no cell phone reception, and the Jeep got a flat tire. We could actually hear it because we had the windows down and the air was just hissing out of that tire like a fire hose. So we jumped out, looked at the hole real quick, and I said to the woman next to me, her name's Michelle, I said, "Can I have your pen?" And she goes, "Yeah, why?" And I just grabbed the pen and stabbed it into the tire. So you can see at the top of the tire, that was where the hole in the sidewall was. And we stopped the loss of air momentarily by shoving that ballpoint pen in there. And then, the whole crew got out. There were 4 of us there. And we said, well, how can we fix this hole? And this is where the scientific creative problem solving comes into play that we all need on expeditions. And so in this instance, we quickly said, what can we make a patch with? Well, we have some duct tape, but that won't be good enough because we're driving over basalt rock and that's pretty sharp. So we chewed some bubble gum and we broke off a small piece of the plastic from inside the back of the Jeep. I don't know what it was supposed to do, but it was kind of like a plug. It was sort of shaped like a pacifier almost. And we shoved at the end of the plastic into the hole. We put the chewed bubble gum over the plastic, and then we duct taped the whole thing together. And that was enough to get up, finish our research, and make it back down off the volcano. So those field fixes and that ability to do creative problem solving, I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it has saved my bacon many, many times and in much more dangerous situations than this one. I mean, worst case scenario, we would have been hiking all night to get back to civilization. But sometimes you don't have help that close by. So you really need to be able to rescue yourself. And that's the sort of thing you learn when you're out doing exploration. So this is a different chapter in my life. This is where I went after I started doing the Hawaiian volcanoes. I went and was doing a PhD program at the Queensland University of Technology in Australia. So you might be thinking, why does this image say Varas de Piaxtla, and why are there horses on what looks like a rundown baseball field? Well, my research was actually in Sinaloa and Durango, Mexico. So I went with my then brand new husband of exactly 1 month, who is also in the Explorers Club now, but at the time he was a computer technology guy, and that's it. I said, okay, honey, for our honeymoon, let's go to rural Mexico and dodge narco-traffickers while we do research on volcanoes. And because he's as nuts as I am, he said yes. And this was the tiny little fishing village that we stayed in. It has about 100 people there. And the name of the town is Varas de Piaxtla. It's about an hour north of Mazatlan, but there is nothing there. I mean, they would sell you 1 egg at a time in the market, because otherwise everyone would run out of eggs if you got more than one. So it was quite an experience. And in my book, I do talk about actually having to retrieve my rock hammer from some narco-traffickers who stole it because I couldn't get another one in time to do my research. So you never know if the danger you're going to encounter is from a volcano or from a person. And that's what makes it never boring. So this is also part of where I worked. This is Espinazo del Diablo, Espinazo del Diablo. That's right. I can talk. But it's a feature that is volcanic, and this is in the state of Durango in Mexico. And it is one of the most dangerous highways in the world. And we actually were stopped by the cartels for questioning about what we were doing there. And everyone had, their submachine guns, et cetera. And my husband, Carlos, is a native Spanish speaker and is half Mexican, half Colombian. So they never looked at him twice. But Oh, I got some weird looks because there were no tourists there. And this was 2010, 2011. So pretty much at the height of the cartel violence at that point. So it was a little dicey, but I still had plenty of time to sit in riverbeds and, use a hand lens and look at chunks of rock. And that was kind of the non-dramatic, exciting part of doing exploration research. But it's bookended with Narcos. And then there's my poor brand new husband at the time, Carlos, modeling for scale. Because when you're a geologist, you always have to have either somebody with a known height or an object with a known size for scale. So Carlos is 5'10", and he was good. He's in all my pictures. And then I did a whole different thing. I took a different direction, and I ended up doing science on TV, which, as Dave mentioned, I've got an upcoming Discovery Channel series that I'm a co-host on. It's not volcanoes, but there are volcanoes involved, and it's about Atlantis. But this shot is from my first TV series that I did, and this was in 2015. And it was a series that it was kind of terrible. You can still find it on Amazon. I can't honestly urge you to watch it because they didn't really listen to the scientists who participated. The executives on that one they were alums of American Idol. So that may give you an idea of what they thought research was. But I got to go to this stunning volcano, which is El Reventador, and that's in Ecuador. Its name means the erupter. And it erupts these days, about every 20 to 30 minutes. So it's spectacular. And I was actually lucky enough to go up that peak on the right that's a little bit lower. I went to the base of that. So right in the area where lava bombs are shooting out, kind of at the end of the area where pyroclastic flows can reach. And those pyroclastic flows are superheated clouds of ash and gas and rock fragments, and they can move at a couple 100 miles an hour. So they're pretty substantially dangerous, but up there is where you get fresh samples and you can put delicate instrumentation that gives us more insight into the volcano. So if you're really bored and you've watched everything else on streaming services, you could watch Trailblazers, but unless you see it come out of the scientists' mouths, do not believe what they say. The announcer even got things wrong. So this was my experience with the media, my very first one as a scientist. And so in episode 4, I said lava bombs can be ejected from the volcano at 190 miles an hour. And that sounds pretty fast. That's nothing to laugh at. The next episode, the voiceover guy that they hired, and whoever wrote this script, I have no idea who did it, but they said ejected from the volcano at over 900 miles an hour. And I'm like, oh my God, no, they do not break the speed of sound. So I learned then that there are certain things I would have to demand if my name was going to be on TV, because it's so easy for people to twist the scientific fact to something that'll either sound scarier or they just misunderstand it. So you've got to be really careful when you're doing anything that's with lay people, non-scientists. Otherwise, you might say something that someone takes wildly out of context, and then that's it. No more media for you. And so I try to be really careful about what I put out there. It's just really hard to get creative control of the media that you put out there, especially if you don't come from that world. So this was my crew on Trailblazers. They were great. I loved my colleagues. The one in the middle was a Navy SEAL named Sean Kylan. And the one on the left is Jeff Johnson. He is a volcanologist, a volcano geophysicist. He likes me to be precise, at Boise State. And they're both wonderful. They made the filming process okay. And you see my outfit there. It looks like a field outfit. I mean, I've got cargo pants on. I'm, in an athletic shirt. I'm ready to go. I've got a glove clip on my left side, right side of the screen. It's that bright green thing. So I'm ready to work on an erupting volcano. The producers of the show, and I kid you not, they wanted me to wear leggings. And for anyone who has worked near really hot things, what you don't want to be wearing are synthetic fabrics because they can melt. So I tried and said, you know what, I'm not here for my sex appeal. But they made me bring the leggings, and I brought them, but I was like, I'm not wearing these. And I was very angry. I said to Jeff and Sean, who you can see are in shape, very manly men, I said, they're trying to make me wear leggings. And to both of their credit, they said, well, if you're going to have to wear leggings, we'll wear leggings too. And Jeff actually runs triathlons. So he actually did have men's leggings with him. And when we told the director that everyone would be wearing leggings, if anyone was, they changed their mind. So some of the challenges that you encounter when you try to bridge science and the media are things you would never foresee. But it's always good if you have a solid team to back you up. Let's see. Oh yeah. And we get to ride in Ecuadorian military helicopters sometimes, which is just really fun. I love helicopters. I know poor Jeff is a geophysicist. Most physicists aren't big helicopter fans because it is a controlled fall more than it is flying. But I love them because they can get you closer to a volcanic eruption than just about anything else. So free ride in an Ecuadorian helicopter, I'm all there for it. And it was hard to look serious when we approached the volcano because we actually did a flight around the summit there, that cone. Now, what you're looking at in this picture, this is interesting because it's a more rare type of lava flow. This flow on the right, which is sort of brownish and covered in what looks like moss and light vegetation, that flow was only 4 years old at the time I took this photo. That's how quickly things grow when you're only 4 miles from the Amazon basin. It was so wet and so damp, and that is a block lava flow. Block lava is a bit more rare, and the chunks of lava range in size from like a bowling ball up to a mini fridge. And the pieces are not coherent, like they're all broken and fragmented. So you take a walk on that mossy material on top of them and it's slick and wet, you'll break your ankle if you're not careful. And you're breaking your ankle, 3+ hours away from good medical care. So it's not to mention it's a 6-hour hike out from this part of the volcano minimum. So if, unless you can get the Ecuadorian military to come back, you're kind of on your own. But we were careful and we had a good team, and that block lava flow is incredible to see in person. And this was our camp. This was behind the scenes. So if you've never done TV, you may not know that for a show featuring 3 people on camera, we had about 30 support people. And this was the camp where the support team stayed. And we shot for 2 weeks.
Jess, I think you're frozen.
Everybody's on Zoom right now, so the bandwidth is pretty full.
Have we lost Jess?
I think, well, she may be logging back in.
Okay.
Well, folks, we will be back with you shortly.
And let me just, I forgot to mention while we're waiting for Jess to log back in, there's a Q&A. So if you have any questions at all for Jess, go ahead and just type them up in the Q&A. It looks like we only have 2, so it'd be great, if any of you have any questions, either for Jeff or David, or certainly for me as well, that hopefully you'll have some for Jess.
Maybe Jess is getting some of that bubble gum to fix the computer. It sure worked well with that Jeep.
I know, I was thinking, oh my gosh, she's a MacGyver.
Yeah, exactly. And she even used duct tape.
I know.
We have to ask if she has a Swiss Army knife.
I want to know if I can go on her next expedition.
Well, this is like your basic expedition, typical problem. I don't have it here. Okay. While we're waiting, I want to make a comment on what one thing Jess said was that she said, quote, people do not have, let's see, not all people, or some people do not have the ability to explore. And I have to say, my own personal experience over these last several years where I went through a double lung transplant, I really appreciate that sensitivity. So not everybody can get out there and explore. And so have somebody like Jess to do it on our behalf or tell us about it really makes a difference. Jess, are you back with us?
I think so. I don't know what happened. Our whole internet went down randomly.
Well,
so if you have Spectrum and live in LA, apologies.
Well, we're glad to have you back, really.
All right. Well, I was almost done with,
before you begin, Jess, again. I'm sorry. Just going to say, Jess, I was just making a comment as you get back into your program. But I was struck by your comment, quote, some people do not have the ability to explore. And that's not completely me, but sometimes I do not have the ability to do the things I used to do because I have limitations after my double lung transplant. I can still do a lot, but some things I just cannot do. I am not going to go explore volcanoes. So somebody's got to do it. And somebody has to come back and tell us about it. And grateful for that, Jess. So why don't you continue on?
Well, thank you, Dave, and thanks everybody for your patience. And yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. Like the nonprofit that I started, tiny segue here, we primarily work with students who are from low-income backgrounds. We see a lot of kids who are first-generation college students, non-native English speakers. They've never been camping, and so we try to expose them to what it's like to be outside and try to show them that, yeah, the natural world is part of all of our shared human heritage. So this is for you. Like, and even if you're a person who lives with disabilities of any sort, like there's still ways that you can be part of it. So you're exactly right, Dave. Like, you've had an amazing life and career and you've done incredible things. And I'm just happy you're still here. So, especially because you're such a great advocate for exploration. So, but I will share the screen again, and it's disabled again. So I think Shar has to re-enable it, probably because I was kicked out and came back. But, technical difficulties. We're almost 2 years into this. We're going into the second year and we still have problems. But, okay, let's try it now. Oops. Yes, I think I can do it. All right, share. Okay, we should be good to go. Can I get a thumbs up or something if we are? Yep, okay, thank you. All right, so yep, putting in a forward-looking infrared camera. I will move on to the next one. Oh yeah, and this is why you do it, right? Like, this is why you agree to go on TV, because if a camera guy who travels the world doing professional videography gets that excited because there's a volcano erupting right behind you while you're filming your scene, like, that's pretty cool. And that's something we really should try to show to as many people as possible. I always tell my students that you should, no matter what you do in life, you should be able to explain to someone else why it matters, like why what you're doing matters in about 30 seconds to a minute. And that could be anything at all. It could be being a parent. It could be working in sanitation. It could be being a volcanologist, but all of those things matter. And being able to convey why what you do matters, communication is the thing that connects all of us. So that's why it's important. And I mean, that feeling, there's nothing like it. And I mean, this is another kind of volcano. I just threw this in here to show that this is a mud volcano. This is Sidoarjo in Indonesia. It has displaced over 60,000 residents of the town of Sidoarjo. And I got to go there and film for the Science Channel for their What on Earth series that a few club members and fellows are in that series. But it was spectacular to go there and see firsthand the devastation that this volcano had caused. And this was a human error generated volcano, although the natural gas company that was responsible and the geothermal folks all around there, they don't want to be connected to it. But it was an earthquake that screwed up a borehole that hadn't been cased properly. There wasn't concrete down to the depth that there needed to be for that sort of drilling. And the result is a mud volcano that's been erupting for, more than a decade. So this sort of thing has real human impacts. And that's why it's so important that we understand what we do to the world around us. And this was more Indonesia. I put this in here because I was wanted to lead up to this video I've got to share. But this on the left, that is me approaching Kawah Ijen volcano, which is known as the Lonely One in Javanese. And it is the site of the world's largest acid lake. It is incredible. And the acidity of the lake is about, I measured it actually for this TV show, and it was 0.24, which is about 4 times stronger than battery acid. Metal barrels that are in the lake literally get eaten. I mean, there's nothing like it. And of course, the gases are highly acidic as well. So gas mask respirator is really important. I would normally be doing a full face one, but I was filming. So I wanted to at least have my eyes visible. So it's some of the sacrifice you make for TV. But on the right, that is actually native sulfur erupting from the inside summit crater of Kawah Ijen volcano. And it looks like blue lava. It is not lava. It's just sulfur, but that sulfur combusts when it makes contact with oxygen. So it looks electric blue. And that picture hasn't been enhanced whatsoever. That is exactly what it looked like. And I can't believe my phone camera could do such a good selfie, but it did. And I have a little video here for everybody. I will be quiet because there is sound. So have a listen and a little look at the blue fire of Kawah Ijen. And that's the video that I show school kids. And then afterwards they say, I want to be a volcanologist. And you can actually go there as a tourist. They used to, the people in the area relied heavily on mining that sulfur. And it's really brutal because they would have to carry out, 150 pounds of sulfur on their shoulders using these woven baskets. And the poor people working near these acid gases, their teeth decay, their spine gets all twisted from carrying those heavy loads. And I was really grateful because the Science Channel, now that I've worked with them a bunch, they allow me to say what I would like to include to a certain degree. So I said, I would like to show some of these sulfur miners and to talk about what they deal with. And they actually aired it. So they aired people who had been impacted by the Sidoarjo mud volcano eruption. So they're really showing the human cost of these things that we just often assume they happen to someone else. Well, yeah, they do, but 500 million people around the world live in the shadow of active volcanoes. So this is a really relevant thing for a lot of folks. And I'm just grateful that now, by doing this and working up from the leggings on Trailblazers incident to where I can talk to a producer or a director and say, we need to show what's really going on here. And they listen. That, to me, that's positive change. Oops, there we go. And then just some of the other random things that I've been lucky enough to be part of. That was me with Margaret Atwood on an Adventure Canada, one of their expeditions. Clayton actually called me like a week before and said, we need a volcanologist. And I had just finished my run for Congress. And I was like, sure, I'll go circumnavigate Iceland for a documentary on Margaret Atwood. Why not? So I got to be the volcanologist, the resident volcanologist for that. And I will probably prize this picture until my dying day because Margaret Atwood was amazing. And I got to spend hours with her and her partner, Graham, who is also a very accomplished writer. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that happens when you won't shut up about what you love to do. And that's why I also encourage everybody, even if you think you have a really niche or obscure interest, or you think maybe nobody cares about it, tell people that's what you're into, because you'll get really random opportunities and people will want to open doors for you when they see your enthusiasm. And then on the right there, I was part of another shoot for Felix, the talented ECAD photographer who takes all those stunning portraits. He's doing another series and he actually came out to the Mojave Desert, and that's my husband Carlos again with an awesome beard, holding up the light. And some of the researchers from our nonprofit Blueprint Earth were part of this shoot. So I can't wait to see the finished product when Felix actually shares it with us. But those are the cool things that come along with doing the science, and it just makes it even more fun. And then as Dave mentioned, oh, look, the New York Times, it showed up here. This is that headline that he was reading from when I was running for office. And that behind me is Vasquez Rocks, which some of you, if you're Star Trek nerds, you may recognize from when Captain Kirk fought the Gorn. That was 7 minutes from my house. So very convenient for a photo shoot. And then, of course, I got covered in the Washington Post, NBC, like lots of coverage because scientists weren't running for office. And I didn't want to be a politician. That was never my goal. I love what I do, but we had a climate denier who was in that congressional seat. Trump had just been elected, and I thought, oh my God, what is going to happen to climate science and scientific research funding if scientists don't step up and take a seat at the table? So I didn't win. Clearly, you would know if I did. But I was able to get a lot of people excited about science. And now I really work to support people who want to run for office, whether that's federal office, state level, something local. All of those positions are important. And science actually shouldn't be silent when it comes to matters of policy, because we should be making policy based on evidence and data. So that's where using our backgrounds in exploring the world and in understanding the value of science really comes into play. And then this cool poster, which one of my supporters made for me. And then he did a whole series featuring like Mae Jemison and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Marie Curie. But this was the original one. He did it for my campaign. And I love it. And I just think it's too cool because he made the volcano look like an actual volcano, not just the stereotypical pointy cone. But and then, of course, these were some of my supporters at the March for Science. And it was just cool to see so many people get fired up, and so many people had never cared about politics before, but they were looking for a way to make a difference. So that's another takeaway that I had from running for Congress was we can all make a difference. There's always a way that you can change your world for the better, and it's up to you to figure out what that is. So I leave time for questions, but then, Dave also wanted to say something. So I don't know what order you want to do this in.
Okay, here I am. Yeah, just before we do questions, I want to well, first of all, I want to make one comment. You didn't lose, Jess. I think you won, but it wasn't about winning a seat in Congress. It's about making science part of the dialogue and the priority. And I'd say you're very successful and you won, and we're seeing the fruition of that now. But I do, knowing that you just spent all that time with Margaret Atwood, she was no doubt your muse as you were writing your book. And so I don't think we should let this opportunity pass without giving you an opportunity for doing a brief reading from your new book, Ms. Adventure, My Wild Explorations in Science, Larva and Life. So would you pick a passage to read to us before we entertain questions?
Certainly, and I did want to ask. I can't see the thing to make my screen share stop. Is that something that Shar can take care of?
No, but there is a little place where you can say stop sharing. If you go, let's see.
It's like changed my view. I don't know what it's doing. Yeah. Oh God. There's probably an expert Zoomer on here who could fix this in a second. But
just a second. I'll find it.
Oh wait, I think I found it. Got it.
It's right there.
Okay.
You got it. You found it.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
MacGyver.
Okay, we did it. All right. Well, now I'm ready to read something from the book. So for context, this is from the first chapter, which is called Welcome to the Club, which you may guess is the Explorers Club. And this was in 2015. Well, it was actually 2016, ECAD. I had just been accepted as a fellow the summer prior. So this was my very first club event. And I had been really nervous to go there and to see if they would really accept me or if maybe they made a mistake in letting me in. So this is the end of the first chapter. For the first time, I had found a group of people who understood my burning desire to dig into the beating heart of our planet. I had never been content just to read about distant lands and other people's work uncovering the secrets of the universe. Joining the effort to understand our world spoke to the child that still lived inside me, the kid who grew up on the novels of Jules Verne, Robert Louis Stevenson, and Jack London, and devoured the televised science lessons of Mr. Wizard. The shadow of the Challenger and Columbia disasters underscored how fragile our exploration efforts could still be. Armstrong's small step had shown humankind that giant leaps are possible if we enlist our collective strength and intellect in the service of something greater than ourselves. Here was a group that not only dreamed of the possible, but set out to prove what possible really was. A group that recognized the role of science in illuminating the darkness of the human condition, of shedding light on the theoretical by turning it into the concrete. A group where I belonged. I had earned acceptance into this extraordinary society, not through being the first to conquer some lofty peak or make contact with an isolated tribe. I was here because today's exploration belongs to scientists. It is the domain of the curious, for whom no amount of knowledge will ever be enough. Scientists are people whose curiosity drives our life's work. My curiosity shoved me headlong into a quest for truth, for objective reality, often in the face of danger and at great personal risk, and has never once allowed me to become complacent or overly confident. That constant, unbridled yearning for understanding our place in the universe is what binds explorers and scientists. T.S. Eliot's poem, East Coker, ends with almost a rallying cry for explorers, both modern and historic. Old men ought to be explorers. Here or there does not matter. We must be still and still moving into another intensity for a further union, a deeper communion through the dark cold and the empty desolation, the wave cry, the wind cry, the vast waters of the petrel and the porpoise. In my end is my beginning. Exploration is not about the individual explorer, just as science is not about the scientist. Exploration and science are our birthrights as humans. And as I have found my life's purpose through exploring our world, my experiences belong in the great catalog of exploration. Every life is an exploration, a testing of hypothesis after hypothesis as we seek to eliminate uncertainty, adjusting and learning, growing and changing, and carving our own trail, however unique or unlikely it may be. We are the explorers, and it is through our exploration that we finally come to know ourselves. Geez, I'm all emotional. But, well, there you go. That's some of the book.
Well, that's fantastic. And, you know, I'm kind of disappointed. I have to wait another week to get the book because it gets delivered to those of us who pre-order it on next Tuesday. But at least we got a nice little preview of it. I would encourage all of you to buy Jess's book, show support. I make a point of buying books written by all my friends. And unfortunately, or fortunately, a lot of my friends are authors. And so my library keeps building. But one thing we want to start doing with the San Diego Explorers Club is for a author like Jess in this time of pandemic, many of us like to have our books signed. So I will be procuring some self-adhesive book plates that I'll send to Jess to sign. She's agreed to do that. And so any of you who would like to, when you buy her book, whether it be at Works here in San Diego or Amazon or whatever bookseller, please let us know and we could get a book plate for your book, okay? But anyway, excellent. And I think, Char, why don't you lead us through some of the questions that have come in through the Q&A function.
Okay, great. And Jess, that was amazing. I mean, I'd like to wrap myself up and go in your suitcase.
Thank you. I would love if we could all just fund every expedition we wanted to do and just do that forever. We're working on it.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of questions. One is, how safe is it to be that near the lava?
Well, everything we do near actively erupting volcanoes is a calculated risk. So what I was doing in the photos where I'm actually sampling the lava was relatively safe. There, of course, was a chance that perhaps there was a lava tube underneath me with a flowing river of lava. I mean, we don't really have a way to see that unless we have a skylight right there. But because that flow was very, very oozy and it wasn't running over anything that was combustible, like it wasn't running over dried branches or twigs, the likelihood of it like popping out any little splatter of lava was pretty low. So on the scale of volcanology risk, it was on the lower end.
Oh,
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I've definitely done a lot more risky things, but you can never relax because the conditions can change in an instant.
very good. So we do have a couple of more questions. Paula Selby is a diver and underwater photographer. Her favorite places to dive are within the Ring of Fire. While diving in this area, she noted incredible biodiversity and some of the most exotic marine life in locations that had prior volcanic eruptions. Do you, Jess, have a scientific explanation for this phenomenon?
Well, it's actually a really good question. I was asked to do a show for Shark Week a couple years ago, and it ended up being titled Devil Sharks, although they told me it was going to be sharks and volcanoes, but you know, they want to make it sound scarier. But I was actually out, we dove off of, and he actually said that they believe that it's largely due to, if there's an active volcano, the biodiversity is pretty substantial because of the warmth that the volcano generates as it's either degassing or erupting lava into the water. And then, of course, I like to think about it just from a good old-fashioned geochemistry perspective. When I think about older areas that were volcanic in the past, but maybe aren't now, like the Hawaiian chain as it goes off to the northwest and is basically atolls or submarine little benches now. That area is rich with minerals, and volcanoes, particularly if they're basaltic, they produce a lot of iron and manganese, and those are really, really great for nurturing biodiversity. So I would guess it has to do a lot with the erosion and just the presence in general of the minerals that are really conducive to life.
Excellent. I was talking about Hawaii, Jess. There's another question specific to Hawaii. Is the submerged volcano Lihi, south of the Big Island, reachable by submersible?
Yes, and actually, it's Loihi, and Loihi is the name means the tall one in Hawaiian, and it is about 1,000 meters below the surface of the ocean right now. That's where the summit is, and then it goes down to about 5,000 meters deep. For my master's research, two, which was the second generation of Jason, not the one they took to find the Titanic, but the one that came after. Had a couple upgrades, and I was working with the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution as a graduate student fellow. And I got to pilot Jason briefly. I'm really bad at driving it, as what I learned. I kept running it into the ocean bottom. But yeah, you could go down in Alvin or in a commercial sub, and 5,000 meters deep is it's over 15,000 feet deep, kind of substantially, but it's doable. It's definitely doable. It's a lot less difficult than going to the Mariana Trench would be. And you just have to watch for eruptions. So
Cool.
you want to get good seismic data before you go near an area where they think an eruption would occur, because eruptions do happen underwater.
That would be something, wouldn't it? Martha Shaw would like to know, what has been your most surprising discovery?
Wow.
Big question.
So many. I would actually say it's something that's a bit more accessible to people, and it's the amazing biodiversity and beauty of deserts. I mean, I grew up in Colorado and I was from the East Coast originally, but I was not an outdoors person. I played sports like basketball and softball and track, and I rode horses, but I didn't like go hiking and camping. So all of my experience with nature has basically been out west. And I'll tell you, I fell in love with Death Valley the first second I saw it, there at Zabriskie Point, and I looked out and I was like, this is amazing. We are seeing the secrets of the universe just laid out here for us to ponder. And so the discovery to me is that you can take major highways to get to some of the most scenic places and scientifically relevant places as we're trying to understand what we might need to do to adapt to a changing climate. I mean, we can take lessons from desert dwellers and the plants and animals that have survived over the millennia and evolved to be so successful in these environments where life isn't easy, to say the least. So I guess it's just that take a drive out west because we have all of the good geology out here.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think that covers most of the questions. I do want to tell you that there were some really great shout outs to you.
Aww.
How wonderful your talk was. So exciting. Lots of thank yous.
Well, thanks to everyone.
Bob Atwater, no questions. However, he wanted to publicly thank you for this outstanding presentation. And George, by the way, says there's nothing quite like standing next to lava.
George would know. we still have to. We've got to go on a volcano together, George. Like, this needs to happen. I'm just saying. So, yeah, I mean, it really is incredible. And I would encourage right now, because of COVID, we're not doing field expeditions, but my nonprofit, Blueprint Earth, you can find us at blueprintearth.org online. Nobody takes a salary, so I'm not plugging it for personal gain. The book is personal gain, but the Blueprint Earth is not. And Bob's actually on the board of Blueprint Earth. And we take students out to the desert to learn how to do geology, biology, hydrology, atmospheric research. We take volunteer researchers too, who are not students. If you're interested in coming out, we're only about 2 hours from LA, or an hour and a half from Las Vegas is where our field research site is. All we ask is that if you want to come on one of our expeditions, which will be restarting in the fall, is that you donate enough to cover the cost of some students to participate, which is a minimum of $100, sends a student out to the field for a full 5-day expedition with us. Wow. So if you want to come out, there's an opportunity that's a little closer to home, and it's still really important research, and you get to be a role model to students. So blueprintearth.org, and you can email me that way, jess@blueprintearth.org.
I'd love to.
Get in touch.
That'd be a great field trip for San Diego and also for the Southern California chapter. Maybe invite people from other parts of the country as well.
That'd be great.
I want to ask one last question for myself before we close. Is another side of you, Jess, and for Carlos, is all your rescue animals. You have horses, you have dogs. And I remember seeing a picture when one of the many fires in Southern California, you're leading all these horses with flames in the background, trying to get them to safety. And so forth. Could you say a word about your menagerie and being like Dr. Doolittle of the high desert?
Yeah, sure. I'm an animal nut. I always have been. And right now, Carlos and I we have 3 rescued ex-racehorses that were headed to slaughter, and we have now given them new skills. One is in progress, and he and I are competing in the Retired Racehorse Project's Thoroughbred Makeover, if COVID allows, in October. And we're going to give him new skills and show that ex-racehorses still have a lot to offer. And then we've got 3 dogs, a Chiweenie, a cattle dog mix, and a Patterdale Terrier, all rescues, and then 2 cats, just pretty generic domestic cats, and then 3 birds. We have an albino mourning dove and 2 king pigeons, and they're all with us. And yeah, we do large animal or exotic animal evacuations when there are wildfires here in Southern California. So you may see us, if you've got animals and you live somewhere that's a fire hazard zone, we may be rolling up with our truck and trailer one of these days to help load your animals.
Great.
There is, if we have time, there's one There is another question that came through from Maria Battazzi. What is volcano research currently telling us about climate change that we need to pay attention to right now?
Well, the biggest thing is that humans have a greater impact on the Earth's climate than volcanoes do. Yearly, I say every year, volcanoes produce less than 1% of the CO2 that is emitted in total. Humans produce the vast majority. So volcanoes are going to keep doing what they're doing, regardless of what we do to the planet. But their effects, like the effects of a volcanic disaster, are going to be made worse because climate change is a threat multiplier. So like if you look at the storms in Texas are a perfect example. Those type of severe storms are going to become more common with the changing climate. So you can imagine if you have a severe storm and there's a volcano erupting nearby, it's just going to make the situation worse. So fortunately, climate change isn't going to change what the volcanoes do. It's just going to make it harder for the communities nearby to adapt. So I just urge everybody to be prepared. I mean, update that earthquake kit. If you're in Southern California, you should have one and you should check it yearly to make sure your supplies are okay. Pick an anniversary of a devastating quake and set your calendar by it. I actually do mine now by the Northridge, or not the Northridge, the Ridgecrest quakes just a couple years ago. That's the time I go and reset every year. But do the same, even if you don't live in an earthquake prone area. You probably have tornadoes or wildfires or flooding or severe storms. It's just a good thing to have. So basically just be prepared. It's the volcanology motto, the explorer's motto, and now all of us as denizens of the planet's motto.
Be prepared.
Yep.
Thank you, Jess. This was amazing. I cannot thank you enough for presenting this evening for us. It was phenomenal.
Well, thank you all. And I cannot wait to see everybody in person before too long. So keep getting your vaccines and stay safe so that we can all get together for the next ECAD and tell some stories around that amazing bar. Okay?
Thank you. Good luck with the launch of your book. And remember, everybody, if you want a book plate signed, just send me an email. I'll make sure it happens. But we're looking out. I mean, it's like having a baby, having we wish we could be with you on the night of your launch, but